Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Zach with EM Weekly. I'm joined with Andy. Andy is the founder of Tablet Command. We're going to be talking about technology in the fire service, his time as a science teacher, and also his time in Vermont, which I'm very excited about. I don't get to talk to a lot of Vermonters on this podcast. There's only like 20 of us in the entire world. So I want to hear about his time in Vermont. But Andy, I am very excited to have you here. And is it Bozzo? Andy Bozzo?
That's a great question. So my whole life I've had to wear that one. So most people, growing up, we were Bozzo, and it was just, there were a lot of us.
Perfect. Yeah, it was an unfortunate spelling of the name for, I'm sure, middle school through high school.
Oh, 100%. But it was like, I played sports, so it just fit right in, and, it gave me a lot of thick skin. But then growing up and learning more about the Italian culture, because I'm 100% Italian, we found out that the correct pronunciation is with the long O and the two Z's like pizza. So, because my dad would always say, "You don't order a piece of pizza, do you?" So it's Bozzo, but people say Bozzo, Bozzo. They don't want to say Bozo.
No.
So it's all good.
Some people probably do.
Yeah. Absolutely. In my younger years, for sure.
Oh, that's awesome. Have you gone through your sort of lineage and your history to understand where the name came from and everything? Yeah.
So that is also an interesting twist that, or it got another twist about 6 years ago. So I did the whole 23andMe thing and 77% from the Italic Peninsula, which is Italy, another 23% from the Middle East and Northern Africa, which you can tell by my dark skin. And my ancestors, or my grandmas were born in the United States. Okay. My grandfathers were born down the street from each other in a place called in a place just outside of Cosenza, Calabria, which is Donaci Superiore. And there's a Donaci Inferiore and Superiore, and I think one is further up on a hill than the other. Now, I have never been south of Rome in my travels. I think I've been to Italy about 7 times. About 6 years ago, we rolled into a town in just south of Genoa called Camoli, and there's Bozzo everything, Bozzo real estate, Bozzo market, Bozzo restaurant. And our Airbnb host, Carlo Pini, who's actually become like a very close family friend. We've done house exchanges. Cool. It's amazing. You kind of throw a little trust into the wind and a lot of good things come back to you. And so Carlo was like, no, I don't care where your grandparents were born. You are from here. You are Genovese. Somebody in your lineage traveled from Genoa to Calabria. Fine. That's fine. Whatever. But you have returned home. You are a son of Genoa. And
that's so cool.
So that was kind of amazing to sort of discover that name is really popular. That name is also our name. Bozzo is really popular in Argentina, Chile, Peru. There's a talk show host named Laura Bozzo in Peru. I think, she's a political activist too. The government was after her for a while.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so we actually are a pretty prolific name in Italy.
Oh, that's so cool.
Happens to also phonetically sound like a clown in the United States if you pronounce it wrong. So whatever.
Well, I'm Borst, and there's nothing really sort of cool to sort of, I've gone back to history. Everyone thinks it's like Russian, or my grandmother's Polish and stuff, but I believe the name is actually Dutch. And if you Google it, it's not that it's not safe for work, but it means a certain thing in a Dutch word that I'll leave to your own devices to Google and find. We'll be right back after this quick break for ads.
The L3 Harris Extreme 400p radio solves problems and is specifically designed for emergency services. How do we know? We field tested it with medical, urban search and rescue, and collapse and confined structures. This radio is amazingly tough. Check out the L3 Harris Extreme 400p radio at l3harris.com right now. How do you spell Doberman Emergency Management? EOP, OEP, HVA, HMP, Thyra, TTX, Drone, PDA. Whenever you need an expert, Doberman Emergency Management field experts are there for support. Contact an expert at DobermanEMG.com today.
Yeah. All right. So from Italy, you're now, Andy, who has done all sorts of cool stuff in your life. And First, I want to find out, what did you major in at Middlebury? What did you think of your time in Vermont? Just because I've got you on here. So I'm going to make a commercial for Vermont, tourism. It's fall out right now.
Yeah,
so.
Middlebury College admissions, So I initially got recruited out of high school to either play Division I or Division III water polo or swim at the Division I level.
Yeah.
So I did the whole thing, and I got, I kind of narrowed it down, and I went on a recruit trip to the University of Southern California, go Trojans, and I swam there for 3 seasons. And I just kind of, as a Northern California kid, LA at the time in my life didn't resonate with me.
Sure.
And I obviously went into USC with big promise and big dreams. And as it happens sometimes with college athletes, it doesn't line up the way.
Sure.
Could I have that decision back and maybe have chosen a smaller school and played water polo? Yeah, I would have done that. But, at the time, it just made sense to, after 3 seasons, get out of there. And, one of my very close friends had attended Middlebury College, and I got to know that whole community. And I just thought I needed a totally different experience. So I transferred to Middlebury. They actually, way up there in Vermont, they actually have a pretty good swim team. So I finished out my swim eligibility. And I knew I was going to do 5 years of college, just because as an athlete at a Division I school, your academic load, you have to tailor it towards when you're in season and when you're not.
Yeah.
And so, and I was a biology major. And so I really, some labs would go on hold for another semester or summer school, that kind of thing. So in my 5th year, or before the end of my 4th year, after my swimming eligibility terminated, we were all joking around, and it was like, oh, why doesn't Andy go out for the lacrosse team? And it was a joke, ha ha ha. Well, then, and this maybe factors into the whole entrepreneurial spirit. I was like, not so fast. Wait, you're saying I can't do it? Are you saying I can't? And so I walked onto the lacrosse team. It was probably one of the most, and I got like maybe this minutes of playing time the entire season.
Sure.
But being a member of that team, playing a role, as a really hard practice player, as an energy guy on the bench, that was an incredible experience to be a part of. My experience was not limited to athletics. I loved Middlebury. Experiencing a Northeast fall, especially in Vermont, is magical. There's a pancake house that's like way up in the woods. And I can't even remember the town, I guess out towards Mount Pillier or whatever.
Sure,
and I'm sure there's a million of them, but where they had taps actually running from the maple trees into the restaurant, and just those aspects, and also getting a flavor for like how East Coast folks view the world. Middlebury is up in beautiful Vermont. Life is a little slower up there, but you have kids from Boston, DC, Chicago. They are very.
Vermont's slow fast. We have a lot of New Jersey, New York people that moved up here in the 70s and they tried to slow down. So you have this sometimes it's really slow and sometimes it's really fast depending on who you run into. Yeah,
it's like the kids worked really hard in class. They played really hard on the playing field, and then they partied really hard. And so not the priorities were always there, but it was just like, just go, 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 go. It was very interesting experience that way. So, I kind of brought my West Coast surfer, like, whoa, no, let's chill, Sometimes that was viewed as like inauthenticity, but, it was like an interesting culture clash.
To be fair, so I was a snowboarder and a skier. We tried to steal that aesthetic for our own culture. Like all our skateboarding, growing up, we were doing skateboarding and snowboarding right as sort of like it was in its peak. And we were learning everything from, Southern California and stuff and trying to, East Coast it. So I think there's a good synergy and symbiotic relationship between California and Vermont. It's almost like similar mindsets, but just like different in every single possible way. But I've only been to California, I think twice, and I loved it out there. But I was like, I also was kind of like, so it's this weather all the time, which I was like, that sounds nice in the winter, but I kind of like it cold sometimes and only hot for a little while. So definitely that's an interesting experience. And I'm glad You got to do the full experience with the real maple syrup. And hopefully you found a source back home where you can still get that. But in that transition from Middlebury, so did you go right as a science teacher? Is that what you wanted to go to school for? And that's kind of where you ended up, or?
Honestly, like a lot of student athlete 20-somethings, you're like, I don't really know what I want to,
Sure,
you kind of have a direction-ish. But I mean, I applaud the kids that know exactly what they want to do.
I still don't know what I want to do.
Yeah, right. I loved, like, I kind of started out in the biology field, like down the molecular science, and I'm going to go to medical school and all those things that you say. And I just really, you do the whole survey, right? You do microbiology, you do biochem and all that. But then you also do sort of the macro stuff like botany and, natural history classes and zoology. And I started really getting into that. I was like, man, I just like being outside,
Yeah.
And honestly, one of the things at Middlebury that sort of happened for me is I attended a biology or a botany class, and I ended up doing a paper on fire succession in western forests, and then I kind of came to understand that, like, the West is a fire-maintained environment.
Yeah.
I work for an urban-rural department now,
Sure.
But like wildfire really captivated me. Not only when I was 5 growing up in the country, I grew up in the country for the first 5 years of my life in California.
Yeah.
Huge wildfire behind my house, lots of airplanes, helicopters and stuff. But then kind of approaching it from the scientific standpoint, how fascinating that is that species have evolved, even how they, distribute their seeds in fire environments, and the chemistry of the soil and all of that is really dependent on fire. Now, that's like a lightning-caused fire 300 years ago, right? Now you've got totally different fire environment because of the encroachment of humans into places like Aspen and Pebble Beach and
the urban-rural interface.
Like, this can't burn. This cannot burn. So for 200 years, we've aggressively said, this will not burn. Well, when it burns, because it's going to burn.
It's true.
I even live in an area where I'm like, this house is going to burn to the ground someday. I really do. I'm like, I have a couple things.
Good you accept it? Yeah. There's nothing you can do about it. You do your best.
Can't get an insurance policy in California, and it's going to burn to the ground. But that fascinated me, and it sort of steered me towards the fire service, but it was a yet unformed idea. And so I kind of launched into, I'm really excited about science. I'm going to teach science. And I also, teaching afforded me the opportunity to coach. So I could coach and I could teach. And I really liked interacting with kids and I was a 7th grade science teacher. So it sort of struck the inner goofball in me.
Sure.
And,
you got to win that audience over. That's the middle schoolers are tough. Yeah.
They're really tough. And I think once you accept them for who they are and you meet them where they are, it becomes, they start to, really eat the content from your hand versus like, we've got this guy, we know where his goat is tied. So that was it. So I spent 4 years as a teacher in California. And then I was like, I got to make money for graduate school because teaching salaries, unfortunately, the way we value education in this country and how we pay teachers it just tells you how much we don't.
Oh yeah. My wife's a teacher. Most of my wife's family is a teacher. Like they've got generations of teaching and it is, it's egregious, especially when you recognize the value of it and how it's not just, cool. We're going to teach you to learn this basic subject matter. We're going to help you evolve as a human being and we're going to get you through the darkest times of your life. Like they're therapists, they're social workers, they're caregivers, all this stuff. So I have absolute love for teachers. So yeah.
Yeah. My teachers and coaches from Middlebury to USC to my school here that I went, Robert Louis Stevenson School, even my middle school and elementary school years, they all made impacts on my life, but we don't value them as a society. And I mean, unfortunately, it's the United States of America. So how do you value someone? You pay them, but we just don't do that. So I had to go make supplemental income and also make money to pay for grad school so then I could be at a higher salary scale as a teacher, because I was like, oh, I guess I'm gonna teach, but let me get this wildfire thing out of my system because it keeps gnawing at me. And so I started fighting fires for CAL FIRE when I was 27, and I'm telling you, the first day on the job, first whiff of smoke, it was that's it. I'm not going back to teaching unless I have to. And so I spent about 2 years teaching, taking tests, and being a seasonal firefighter. And finally in 2000, I landed a job. My wife, as a teacher, moved us to Washington State. I kind of left CAL FIRE kicking and screaming because I thought I was going to be a CAL FIRE firefighter. I landed a job with a very municipal urban fire department, which then was called Kent Fire and Life Safety, but now it's called Puget Sound Fire, and it kind of surrounds the Seattle metro region. Great fire department, great mentors. And one of my mentors actually works with us at Tablet Command today, retired Deputy Chief Eric Tomlinson. And so, he's just an example of the character of people there. And then I kind of slipped, I was on another list, which was the Tacoma Fire Department. So I did 2.5 years at Kent, and I got selected for the Tacoma Fire Department Academy. And as hard as it was to leave the personnel in Kent, because it was just a wonderful family and a wonderful group of people, if I was going to be an urban firefighter, I really wanted to do it in the oldest city that was offering me a job. And Tacoma's really old, and they burned a lot. And so I did a lot of reps in Tacoma. I learned a lot about myself and about firefighting there, and so that was also a valuable experience. One doesn't trump the other. They were both additive to my formation as a firefighter, and led to my eventual employment with Contra Costa County Fire, where I've been I think I'm in my 17th or 18th year there now. And also my understandings of incident command, major emergency management, and hence kind of led to Tablet Command.
Yeah. So let's talk about Tablet Command. So obviously ICS, essentially started in California. I mean, Firescope was the original ICS. Obviously, much of that was borrowed and sort of stolen and reconfigured from military C2 and stuff. And it sort of feels like not much has evolved over the course of time. So I think for a lot of us, I was just one of those people, especially coming into the fire service. I was a volunteer firefighter for over a decade, did EMS and stuff. I was also a huge geek and a nerd, and I love technology, and I was trying to integrate it at every point. And at every point I was sort of like, well, hold on. We put the wet stuff on the red stuff. We do not put computer screens anywhere near this. And, there was a lot of sort of ne'er the tween shall meet. And of course, there was a generational gap. I'm a millennial, I guess technically a geriatric millennial, which is the most disgusting term I've ever heard in my life.
I've never heard that before.
Oh yeah, I came across this and it absolutely unraveled me.
Yikes!
I'm 39. I'm over the hill. I'm dying.
Man, what an existential crisis!
It was bad. Yeah, I'm turning 40 this year. I'm spiraling ever since I heard that. So,
all right, dude. Well, I'm 52, so it's.
Oh, dude, you look great. 52. I hope I still have energy and vigor at 52, because the geriatric millennial thing made me feel like I was ready for a walker and that it was game over for me. So
you just got to throw that term out with the bathwater, man. Yeah.
So I feel like I'm in this bridging generation where the Gen X and sort of boomers behind me that were raising me as a firefighter and an EMT and stuff. Were very much it's the fundamentals that matter and stuff. And then I was starting to see this like evolution of like, well, there's a lot of new stuff. Like the fire service has evolved, of course. Like, air packs at least were standard, but like air packs were getting lighter. There was some, basic telemetry that was starting to show up.
Yeah.
The pump panels were going digital. The communications were going digital. So this stuff was sort of like coming in, but it was like every new thing that came in that I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to make our job so much easier. Mm-hmm. It was like fighting to introduce this. And one of the things that I always sort of boggled my mind was like command, because a good chief and a really good unified command, when you see it, I mean, it's just chaos. There's papers everywhere. They're writing stuff on whiteboards. Your old command board, it was like, if you didn't understand the handwriting and stuff, you were lost.
Yeah.
And it really took a conductor to run it well. And if you didn't have that conductor, chief's on vacation or retires and the next person comes up, doesn't have that skill set, it's like unravels and you got to start all over again. So the idea of introducing that technology to that role, I think, is something I've always been interested in. And I'm really curious, like, did you straight up come up with this? Like, was this something you were sort of like building over the course of your career? Like, how did you decide, like, I'm going to solve this, or I'm going to build something to help solve this?
Yeah, so I have an amazing capacity for minutia in the brain, and so I picked up things, even so as I was a Cal Fire firefighter. When you're off season, you tend to be, a paid call for some association. And my first paid call fire department was right here in Carmel, California, the Cypress Fire Protection. And, we had these cool Velcro tags that had your name on it. And when you occupied a spot on the engine, you put your Velcro tag there. And so it was like, all right, noted. All right, someone knows that I'm on this engine. It's Velcro, but okay, noted. And then you start being introduced as you're moving from department to department with these staffing programs, some of them being index cards, some of them being on the computer. Okay, noted. And then you start watching, your most dialed in incident commanders and how they're managing fires. And I think probably the most compelling thing that I saw was like the incident commander that had a built-in file cabinet in the back of their command buggy and pulled out the pre-printed tactical worksheet. That was like, whoa, that is avant-garde, that's cutting edge. And so to see that with regard to even, you just mentioned something about like transcription and recognizing handwriting, that took some of the guesswork out of it. I watched, one of my battalion chiefs in the Kent Fire Department, Paul Wright, came up with a plexiglass system with Velcro strips, and he would just take our engine tags with our Velcro names on it and move them from staging to fire attack. He had a ventilation column. He had all these different things. So I thought, all right, so analog, we're walking those things across the Velcro tag and what he's doing. And I think he was one of the only incident commanders I've ever seen in my 25-year career that actually had like a stopwatch.
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting. So and then I started learning more about Alan Brunacini.
Legend.
And then, in the later years, Anthony Castros.
Yeah.
And these organized approaches to incident command. They were all sort of overlapping in different ways. If you're searching for a way, fire departments are searching for a way to organize that incident command. Just from a philosophical standpoint, Anthony's doing a great job out there. He's out there, teaching fire departments how to sort of organize that. And he kind of picked it up where Alan had sort of laid a foundation as well. And, his book, Fire Command, and that took from Fire Scope, which is more of a large disaster method, but the thing is like, even in my fire department where I serve, we run about a wildland fire a day or more per day in the summer. Wow. They can be less than an acre, or they could be 10 acres or more. But when it's 105, 115, we do get a significant amount of reps. And so it's like, boom, here's that incident command system. You better have it dialed in. And a lot of that comes from those early techniques. So there was a lot of overlap and a lot of influence. It's sort of like, I'm going to get this wrong, so sorry for musicians, but it's like, I think Mozart was influenced by Beethoven, who was influenced by Brahms, who was, so all these great artists took inspiration from each other, even, paint artists as well. And so it's that same thing in the incident command scope. So you asked me, okay, did I just like dream up Tablet Command? No, I mean, I've been a student of the incident command game since the get-go, and I've always been fascinated with like war stuff and military stuff and hierarchies and organizations as well. And then I live down the road from the Naval Postgraduate School, so I've been privy to some interesting talks and conversations and literature that's come out of there in terms of command and control. But again, being a member of the fire service and for a long time being a firefighter at the end of the nozzle, in a fire, hoping someone at least knows where I am, that made an impression on me that incident command systems are really important. So probably the catalyst boils down to two things. In 2007, we had 2 line of duty deaths in our department. Same incident, 2 line of duty deaths. The short story for people who haven't heard this is the fire came in as a fire alarm. I know probably in Fire Department USA, fire alarm is different than working structure fire in terms of response, situational awareness, all of that. And they get about a half a block away. They see a column of smoke. They call a full response. They find out 2 elderly people are trapped. They go in there with a hose line. They're trying to locate the victims. They actually locate one victim. They go back in to find the next victim. The fire conditions were, the fire conditions, in addition to the building construction, lent itself to sort of a disastrous outcome. And both the 2 citizens and our 2 firefighters from our department died in the line of duty. And one of the things that came out from the NIOSH report and from the investigation was you guys have inadequate command and control. This was right about the time that people were bringing their iPhones to work. Maybe like a year later, things were starting to really percolate. It was like, hey, I've got this new iPhone. People, I even remember I was in recruit school. So I had been an 8-year firefighter. I'd gone into plenty of buildings on fire. But as it is in the fire service, if you change fire departments, you have to start from the bottom. So I was in recruit school when this went down. But I even remember like classmates in my recruit school, they were the first. I still had a flip phone, and these guys had like iPhones. They're like, oh yeah, I can get on the internet right now. And I'm like, you can do that? Like you can search the internet from a phone? What are you talking about? Well, about 2 years later, my own technology knowledge is coming up a little bit. And I was playing Words with Friends, but I was playing it and thinking about this presentation that I had to give to some battalion chiefs because we could not agree on Velcro tags or some other analog system for personnel accountability. And I'm like spelling words and like moving tiles onto the Scrabble board with Words with Friends. I was like, oh, all right, wait a minute. That playing board is the fireground. And that letter that I just dragged onto the fireground is an engine company that's probably capable of holding staffing and an assignment. And someone else, just like in Words with Friends, from across the world or 10 floors up or 10 miles away on Division Lima, can see that I just gave them these people. So this has to take flight. This has to live. And that's sort of where Tablet Command was born. A lot of people have said to us, and I will say, yes, I'm one of the founders. I hatched this idea on paper because it's funny. I thought about a technological idea, then had to go back to pencil and paper to hatch it out. And then about a month into it, I reached out to a friend of mine that was also a firefighter at Contra Costa County. And he had been at Contra Costa about 5 months longer than I had been, or maybe 10 months, I don't know. But, and I said, and I knew he was a technological, had aficionado. I said, I've got to take these paper drawings and put them onto a tablet because tablets are coming. he was convinced right away. And that's when we started this, I will call it a conversation with the fire service at large, because all these people were kind of rushing to at least the entrance of the fairgrounds, so to speak. Some of us, I'd say, have made it to the other end. But this is really a collective thought process. And now, I mean, the Tablet Command team, not to sound salesy, but we have, firefighters from all over the country that have served in roles from battalion chief to deputy chief to chief of the department. They're either advisors or full-time employees that have been, retired from the fire service. They work for the Office of Emergency Services. They come from the city of San Francisco. They come from, large urban metro departments to wildland to urban-rural interface departments. And we barnstorm all over the country, and we put this product on the chopping block. Even today, it's over 10 years old, and we put it on the chopping block and say, hey, Charlotte, what do you need? Hey, Charlotte, North Carolina, what do you need? Hey, Jacksonville, Florida, what do you need? Hey, Columbus, Ohio, what do you need? Because I think one of the hurdles and stigmas that we're trying to make sure that everybody knows is that, like, I can go into a high-rise and fight a high-rise fire.
Yeah.
I go to apartment fires all the time. I go to house fires all the time. I go to large hazardous materials incidents as frequently as large hazardous materials incidents happen. We're not just a wildland fire department with air tankers dropping pink stuff. Yes, that's part of our componentry, but we are like you. I just was in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I just was blown away at how similar we are.
Yeah.
They're big, like they have 44 stations. They have tons of truck companies.
A lot of new stuff too,
Very professional department. I mean, I just was so impressed. And yet we're all talking the same language. So I just want to make sure that it's like, hey, well, I'm not a California dude that like is just digging fire line. Like we have this product that is suitable for you. Anyway.
Well, and there's buy-in too, right? I mean, like,
Correct.
I think one of the things that's really challenging in emergency services is like when you're pitched something by someone who's saying, I've got this new thing, and you're like, cool. What department are you with? What agency do you belong to? And they're like, nope, I'm just a software engineer.
Yeah.
I saw how you guys do something, and I thought I could fix that. And very well, they probably could.
Yeah.
But the sort of gatekeeping of professional services, some rightfully so, right? Like if I'm using your software, like I want to make sure it's not going to get me or the people I care about killed,
right?
Or create more of a headache for me. It can be really challenging. So I think having a cadre of folks, from the field also helps to sort of just build that legitimacy. And I imagine it also helps you in the evolution of the product, because you have people that are not only like, hey, here's a really cool idea, and the software engineer takes it and they go, all right, I built it in. And then you go, all right, we're going to literally go try this out right now because I'm on my way to whatever, and I'm going to see how that works. So I'm assuming that's by design, right? Like you know what you're doing with sort of like bringing these folks in. But how did you find, I guess, is there a population of firefighters out there that's big enough to say, like, we're ready for like this new technology evolution?
Yeah, I mean, the way that we were able to sort of seed the product into the fire service is really interesting in itself. I would say the spirit was willing from coast to coast from the get-go, and the infrastructure was weak, to sort of borrow a biblical, phrase and paraphrase. So there have been fire chiefs, like really even early on in the life cycle of metro departments, like, I have a credit card. How many licenses can I buy right now?
Yeah.
The problem was, here we are rolling in all with our newfangled iOS platform, and IT managers were like, no. Barred. We don't even think about our iOS. That's great if you want to create something in a vacuum. CAD integration is not going to happen in this department, not on my watch, So a lot of Microsoft heritage type of IT managers were the initial roadblocks, not necessarily the rank and file. And when I say rank and file, I don't even mean firefighters. I mean like battalion chiefs and fire chiefs that could see, hey, They knew, being intellectually honest with themselves, they knew that listening to a radio and reading a paper readout and sticking their heads down and writing down all the resources that were coming to this 2-alarm apartment fire or this 4-alarm Home Depot fire or warehouse fire, whatever it's going to be, that caused a gap in communication and thickened the fog of war. So they knew when they saw it, they were like, oh, you guys are totally onto something. Can you CAD integrate it? And we got lucky early on in our own fire department that they trusted us enough to manage the data in a secure way to sort of pilot what CAD integration was going to look like. And then we had some really unlikely candidates in some old school fire departments in California that said yes. And then we had some old school departments in like Denver and San Francisco, like City of Denver and San Francisco that said yes early, because they realized that it's like, even if I can get like one of the wins, the early wins that we have been able to score with Tablet Command, and just one of the immediate benefits is that if you're an incident commander, and I don't care if it's a single alarm house fire or a multi-alarm high-rise fire, if you can look down at your tablet and look at who's coming on the first alarm, second alarm, third alarm, and you can see them in real time through AVL, that's a win. And that's like one tap of the finger, maybe two. That's a win. If that kept you off the radio on your command channel from listening to dispatch reel off this shopping list while the smoke's getting blacker, you've got a line of dudes or gals waiting for an assignment, and it's just that in itself is saving time, and saving time saves lives. And so that enhancement was a win. It has to come with CAD integration.
Sure.
But that enhancement was a win. And as we got more and more customers testifying to that, hey, I looked down, I could see where my crews were on AVL, I could give them appropriate assignments, I could pull them out of the danger zone. That then sort of, oh my gosh, this is a terrible pun, but touched off a fire in different receptive nodes around the country. We had a lot, and then sort of in the middle part of the life cycle, we had a lot of customers that said, yeah, no, we totally want it. We're waiting for this person to retire out of IT so that we can, but someone's waiting in the wings that's really receptive to it. So interestingly enough, the challenges have been more human. I mean, integration is a breeze. It's easy. API integration is, I'm not going to say it's a breeze. That's me over assuming for our tech team and our integration team, but they do a fantastic job, and they know it in and out, and they have not met a CAD, a computer-aided dispatch software that they cannot integrate with. It's sort of the human piece that surrounds that with regard to management and acceptance that, hey, this is something that is easy to manage, and your people, more importantly, your firefighters want it, your captains want it, your engineers want it, your battalion chiefs want it. So it's been kind of interesting that way.
And so obviously, like, your background's fire. A lot of folks that are in the circle are fire, but like, I imagine there's other fields now that are looking at this and saying like, well, we want it because we don't have anything like this as well, or we just want to be included. Like, as an emergency manager, for a long time, especially in a major disaster, like, you're making these requests for a huge amount of resources, and you're hoping that the resource manager at a staging area is capturing this stuff and is reporting it correctly. But like, you have no real-time picture. It is like paper, and then like every ops period, hopefully you're getting the correct information as things coming in. It's really, really hard to track that all. And so, like, as an emergency manager, I'm hearing this and I'm like, all right, what about, like, could the cop cars, get this? Could the ambulance get this? Could our public works get it potentially where, we could manage infrastructure failures and stuff on there?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So in our system where I work currently, my department where I work, we have EMS and fire on the same platform. So through AVL, through resource management, they're right there. And, unfortunately, we work in the United States of America where, mass shootings is a thing. Yeah. And then you've got a lot of people just in transit all the time. So mass casualty incidents, whether they're intentional or due to an accident, besides the fact that it seems like natural disasters are not getting smaller, they are getting bigger. We get a reminder of that every summer with wildfires and the subsequent evacuations, or floods and the subsequent evacuations. And so the ones that have sort of peeked over the fence for a long time that are now starting to come over for the barbecue, so to speak, is PD. And so we've got some law enforcement agencies that are now seeing the value because the importance of unified command, either during intentional mass casualty incidents and knowing where your officers are, vehicle location versus personnel location, also knowing where they fit in the incident command picture. As
you're building your zones, right? Yeah. Who's in the warm zone, who's in the cold zone, and hopefully you're not in the wrong one. Yeah.
And the other important thing from a practical standpoint is just pairing up, or putting together your RTFs, your rescue task force. And, you basically have one cop with a gun up front and you have one cop to your rear with a gun. And then a bunch of us, EMTs and paramedics, like, I hope we don't get shot before we get, and it's those guys, but now we are truly working together. It's almost like we're on the same hose line. Yeah. So it's important to know where they are and what they're doing. So that's where law enforcement and the unified command structure is really important. It's also really important in the whole evacuation thing. And again, public service announcement for us, it's mostly wildfire, and it's sheriffs and cops going door to door saying, get out. The fire's coming. But in the East Coast neck of the woods, it's get out. The flood is coming, or the hurricane is coming, or the tornado is coming. And so incorporating them into the common operating picture is really important. And then naturally for us on the West Coast, and again, there's an East Coast application through all the natural disasters that occur there, through floods and hurricanes, is the AT&Ts, the Verizons, the PG&Es. We've had the conversations. They're interested in what we're doing. And the next step is to, really search for important ways to incorporate us all onto one single pane of glass without overwhelming the user. And I'm your typical user. I'd say that one of the values I bring is like, hey, I'm kind of a Joe guy with dirt under his nails. And, I'm working as an acting battalion chief right now, and I have to refrain myself from picking up fire hose or taking a line into the building or grabbing a long-handled tool and overhauling. Like, my job is not that anymore, and it's really weird. But my job is to see this larger scope and know how to escalate an incident and know how to track units and hand off to like a larger incident management team, going from a type 4 to a type 3, being a part of that picture, rolling into a type 2. And so, our product is really appropriate for that because, again, it was sort of born in the West where like you can have a resource package of 100, like no problem. Like that's an afternoon in July.
We're so jealous over here.
And you should come out. It's a very interesting thing. It's just like, it's 102. We will be getting units from all over the region. You know? So it is a pretty common occurrence, and it's just a function of population as well. So
sure, yeah. What's next, right? Like, obviously, I'm going to ask you about AI. Like, AI is. I've talked about it a lot on here. I've had a bunch of people on. Micah Gaudet, who's been doing like AI and just general government services. We had David Reedman, who works for Zero Eyes. AI is enhancing things. It's making things easier, but like sometimes it's introduced to stuff just for the sake of introducing it. Have you guys started thinking like, how can we actually use this to empower our users or make it easier?
So one of the things like Will Pigeon, who's the co-founder of Tablet Command, and he's the technical co-founder for all intents and purposes, and currently functioning as the CEO and the CTO. One of his biggest values is that he's really intentional with every feature.
Yeah.
I think us firefighters sometimes can be like dogs, where it's like, or sharks, where it's like, there's blood in the water, let's go for it.
Yeah.
And there's a danger that you run with. The most important thing is that the current product that we have, that we circle a red line around that and make sure that that is 99.99999% uptime at all times.
Yeah.
And then with every feature that we stack on top of that, that we don't topple over the core feature with bugs and lose our audience, so to speak, and sort of tell that story of, oh, they're just going the way of every other technology company where they've overloaded it with features. There's no real intentionality here. And so we have talked at great length about AI and how important it will be. I'll use an example or a tangent that may not seem related, but I'll try and tie a bow around it. Currently, we have fire departments like Sacramento Fire and Independent Evolution, Charlotte Fire. They both did these on their own. They're Tablet Command customers. They go to a lot of fires daily. So let's just say on the west side of town, each department, they get dispatched to a fire. Maybe it's a 2-alarm fire, whatever it is. On the east side of town, a BC will hear that, that's working, and they'll say, you know what? I'm going to start managing it for them. I'm listening to all the radio reports. I'm listening to the captain's size up. I know he's got 2 out established. I'm going to check off a few of these items that I've heard. They have a permanent water supply. Simple things that we can all say, like, did you hear that? Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, it's time stamped. It's in the notes, the activity notes in Tablet Command. And they'll start managing it based on what they're hearing on the radio. Well, those are ways that, and then when the BC arrives, I'll finish the point. Sometimes I get a little ADD. When those West Side BCs arrive, that incident is halfway built for them. Yeah. It's like on the right track. Everybody's in the right bucket.
Sure.
They can reconcile that. Yes, indeed. Engine 85 is working for Engine 86. They have fire attack and 2 out established. They're also performing a primary search, and we have truck 84 going to the roof. Like they can see that. They can see it visually. They can reconcile it on the radio. And they can verbally talk to whoever's, the engineer who's also saying that's all good. Well, we've talked about ways that AI might be able to take easy wins or easily digestible, verifiable information and suggest, not make it gospel, but say to the IC, hey, sounds like you have this, this, and this, and this going on. But the reliability, there has to be an out for our users. Yeah. And the reliability has to be like bullseye dead on. And so that's where we're going, I think with some of the things that, we're still going to provide core features, crew splitting, division and group management. If I'm a division soup, I can manage my 5 units on my division, incorporating radio traffic into Tablet Command, but there will be a place for it. And again, to honor and to respect our core group of users, which I am honored to say I'm a part of, we really have to make sure that we can authentically present something that doesn't, can I swear on this podcast?
Sure, yeah.
That doesn't scare the shit out of them to say like a robot is managing my incident now, not me. Yeah. That's the last thing we want. So that's kind of where we are.
I'm in a constant push-pull with this type of technology because it excites me. So I did an episode where I basically ran a few simultaneous incidents. Recommend you listen to it just for fun. You can get an idea of sort of what I was doing. I wanted to see, because, as an emergency manager, I'm largely a resource manager. Like that's what our job is. We're supposed to sort of track it, and we're in a scarcity of resources. So when you're talking a larger and larger scale, and emergency management agencies, fire departments, we're not getting more people, right? This is where I see AI as being a huge advantage, is starting to like figure out like, how is this a force multiplier? And so I started running through it. Now, of course, trust but verify everything that's AI right now. It's all based, and it needs to be built for you, right? Like I'm not recommending you throw ChatGPT in there. It might be helpful for some things. Maybe you can be like, hey, I need to know the friction loss of this line up 100%. Through that window, and I can't do the math right now. My brain is shot. That type of stuff. But like, 100%. I think there's a lot of opportunity. I'm actually relieved that you're not just like, we're finding we're going to jam it into this, right? Because at the end of the day, you guys have a life safety mission. And, I think that's one of the hard things, particularly in public safety, where I found it more so after 9/11, which is really, as I was coming up, there was just so much stuff being jammed down our throats for like, this is going to help you with command and control and anti-terrorism and all this other stuff.
We're still sorting it out too, right?
And those companies just disappeared overnight, right? Like they just sold us a bunch of crap and then they pulled up shop and they left. I mean, how many departments had these huge command vehicles that they're like, oh, there's a $20,000-$30,000 maintenance fee on this thing every year because the tires are insanely expensive. The generator needs tons of maintenance. These screens and computers go out of date every 2 years. We got to replace those, the radios, all this stuff. So I'm actually relieved that there's a thoughtful approach to this because, like you said, I think there's a lot of opportunity and there's two mindsets. And I think the mindsets that are, I mean, you can look at all the software developers that are making this stuff and it's like some pop up and then they're gone overnight. Like you just never hear from them again. And you have a really trusted audience, it sounds like. So you don't want to do that.
No, because the reason we don't want to do it is, number one, and again, I'm part of this cadre of people within Tablet Command that rolls to structure fires 90 to 95% of the time.
Yeah.
I roll to, maybe like, 80% of the major incidents that I roll to, I don't go to 80% structure fires. I want to make sure that doesn't come out. We go to, I'm lucky enough that we do go to about a working fire a tour, which is great. Yeah. But what I want to say is, of the major incidents, structure fire being part of that, 80% of those are single alarm structure fires.
Sure.
Then there's another 20% that get into like multiple alarms or the major wildland fire campaigns or the major flood campaigns. So the way we approached Tablet Command was, let's put a product in everybody's hand that they use all the time.
Yeah.
And then we'll stack layers for that management of that larger incident.
Nice.
And that's what we've done over the last decade.
Yeah.
What I've seen with the companies that you reference is they see a terrible event happen on the news and they go, we've got to fix this.
Yeah.
And then they engineer something for a major incident that involves keyboarding and just even biomechanics that you're not doing as an emergency responder. You're just not doing it. You're not flipping over a laptop. And this isn't Star Trek. We're not there yet. I don't have Geordie LaForge over here like engineering an algorithm on the fly to defeat the Klingons. I've got...
It's a great nerd reference. I'm going to New York Comic Con next week, so I really appreciate it.
All right, yeah. No, I'm big nerd underneath this exterior there. But there is and so we wanted to gain trust, and we also wanted to gain use case by saying, this is applicable to your bread and butter residential structure fire, because my 80% is just like everybody else's 80%, whether you're a combination department, the 80% of the major incidents that you are going to, Firefighter USA, is going to be single alarm, residential structure fire. Then you'll go into the multi-alarms, and then you'll get into the major disasters and some of the other, more complex incidents. But we as a team, very early on, saw some of that technology that our departments spent, in some cases, millions of dollars on. Yeah. And it was excellent at collecting dust. Yeah. Everyone looked at it. We took a lot of time from our core competency skills to train on something that we never used.
Yeah.
So what we fight sometimes is like, dude, we love Tablet Command, but we spent our money on this blah, blah, blah that nobody uses.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, so how many budget cycles before we can catch you? And they're like, 2. So it's kind of that, like, we'll be here for you. And we've been doing this for over a decade now, and we're going to continue to be here. So, we'll catch you on the flip side, so to speak, if you sort of spent your money on the cotton candy on the way.
Yeah, so it's it's tabletcommand.com, right? Like you can just go there and then spend the money as soon as you're freed up from your last terrible investment, which is a real thing. When you said that, oh my gosh, there's so many things. I've been on both ends of it too, where I've pushed us into that, where I'm like, this is the solution, and then like, oh crap, this was not the solution, and I just spent way too much money on something that I was overpromised and underdelivered on. But do you think you're going to stay active as a firefighter forever, or are you going to eventually hang your hat? I know it's like really, really hard. And we have a new podcaster who's a buddy of mine who's a firefighter, and I sort of have disconnected from that world a little bit. I still do USAR. I'm actually about to hang up my hat on USAR, and I'm like, oh man, I'm drawn back in there. Like, it's hard to get out of it, but at some point, this company, are you going to run it all the time? Or are you just going to try to keep this balance of doing the fun job and doing the work job? I mean, I guess they're probably both fun jobs, to be honest. But
yeah, no, they're great. I mean, they're both fun. Fortunately, we have about 16 to 18 employees that are full-time and retired. They're retired the technical co-founder, Will Pigeon, he bravely made the leap from, and he's younger than me, and he bravely made the leap from full-time fire and part-time tablet command to full-time tablet command, which is like 3 jobs for him. And we have a lot of guys that are really doing that. The answer to that question, am I going to ever come over full-time, is TBD. I really love what I'm doing. I really love using the product in the field.
It sounds like you have a sweet spot right now.
Right now I do, because I can go in this past year, I've gone to meet with firefighters and chiefs from the Columbus area, from Violet Township, from Charlotte, North Carolina. I definitely, at every opportunity, I'm headed down to Southern California for a conference in a couple weeks. I'll be at FDIC in Indianapolis. So at every opportunity that I can hop on a plane and barnstorm around the country and talk to fellow firefighters, and we can talk shop. And the blend, because it's like, you're basically, our typical customer is looking up doing real fire things, and we're kind of sneaking in and handing them a tablet going, here, use this. And they're like, oh my God, that's great. But it's like, the brilliance of Tablet Command is at-a-glance technology that's doing a lot for you that a pencil and paper can't do, and the over-engineered, product that the kids from, you insert fancy college CS department or insert fancy company, can't do either. Because we're talking the real language. Will has talked the real language for 20 years. I've been at it for 25, 26 years. We have guys that have been on the job, 30 years. So we can talk the real language, translate those needs and wants into a technological solution that's not going to overwhelm you in the moment, that you can either get back to or put on pause for a second. And then it's just seamlessly enhancing your workflows. It's laying right on top of what your normal workflows are. Our TC mobile product on Android and iPhone, and then Tablet Command, which is coming to Android soon, and it's on iOS. It has been for a long time, and we're getting great responses around the country for that. So,
well, Andy, I really appreciate it. I appreciate learning about your background. I think a lot of folks who come out of the fire service sort of like try to figure out what they want to do. You found this like great mix of like, I don't have to leave the fire service, suckers. And I think the software is really cool. I'm a huge fan of, again, leveraging technology to make lives easier and do the job better. And it sounds like you guys have that figured out. So really appreciate it. Where can people find you and find Tablet Command?
Yeah, they can find me and or Tablet Command at tabletcommand.com. They can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, X, Threads, LinkedIn, all of the social media channels. We've been on the news a handful of times, national news handful of times, and so we're out there in the ecosystem. I'm on LinkedIn as well, and Facebook. So I encourage you all to reach out if you have questions. We have a great sales team that'll take care of you. We have a great tech team that'll take care of you, and our support and our customer service is unmatched, because we cannot look you in the face at the next trade show and listen to how our product failed you. We really want to be we want to take owners of your success, take ownership of your success by providing that service. So you can find us at all those channels, and of course, again, tabletcommand.com.
Awesome. Well, 30 minutes turned into 60 minutes, which I knew was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate your time. And for everyone who made it through, like, comment, subscribe, certainly go find Andy and Tablet Command and all those things. Go through the history of his family's entire running of a community in Italy, it sounds like. And I appreciate you listening. So thank you, Andy. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Zach. I really appreciate it. Have a great one.